Hello, I'm Melissa Castellanos with Halo Creative Designs. Today we're going to make a home decor piece that you can display for Halloween. So let's get started. The first layer of our base is going to be this roll of 21-inch poly jute deco mesh in natural. We're going to gather the edges on the end to form a tail. Then we're going to take that tail and lay it into a set of twist ties on the inner ring. It doesn't matter which set of twist ties you choose on the inner ring to start off, any will be just fine. Just lay your tail in, pull your stems opposite each other firmly and give them a good twist to secure your mesh to the frame. We are going to do 12-inch poofs. So you put your beginning set of ties on your start mark. You measure to 12, you gather your edges, you place that gather into the next set of twist ties and secure them to your frame. Then give it a little fluff. Again, take that set of twist ties, measure out to 12, gather your mesh in your hand, then place that gather into the next set of twist ties and give it a good twist to secure it to the frame. And of course you have to fluff. I always like to fluff as I go because if I see a poof that's not formed right, I want to be able to change it right away. Now, all we do is keep repeating that same step of measuring out 12 inches and gathering, then laying the gather in the very next set of twist ties and securing to your frame. Give it a little fluff after you've secured it, and then you can move on to your next poof. Continue making your poofs to complete the inner and outer rings. Now we're making our very last 12-inch poof. You're going to take the tie that you started on the bottom ring with and open it, lay this last poof in on top, and then secure your twist tie to secure both layers of mesh to your frame. And that ends the first layer of our base. Now you're going to want to cut a little tail to release the roll of mesh from your frame. Then take that tail and tuck it up under the poof in front of it. It's going to ride there and no one will ever know it's there. Our very next step is to cut some of the filler mesh that we're going to use. So we're going to start with this 10-inch black wide foil metallic mesh. We're going to cut it in 15-inch strips, and we're going to cut 18 of those strips because we're going to use one strip for every tie on our frame, which is a 15-inch frame in case I forgot to mention at the beginning. Now we're going to cut the second part of our filler mesh. This is 10-inch frayed edge burlap mesh. We're going to cut it in 15-inch strips as well, and also 18 pieces because we're going to use one per tie. Now we're going to add the filler meshes. We're going to start with the black. We open the tie. We lay the black ruffle in, and then we twist the ties back to secure the mesh. Then we're going to ruffle the frayed edge, and we're going to lay it in on top of that black piece we just added. We're not going to open the ties again. We're going to leave them closed, and we're going to lay this frayed edge piece in on top. And this is called the ruffle method. We're just layering two different types of mesh for a different texture. The technique that we're using for this filler mesh is called the ruffle. You place it with the curved side going down. You locate the center of that strip with your thumbs and forefingers, and you just walk it back and gather it into what forms and looks like a bow tie. And that's how you make a ruffle. And like we did the first one, you open that next set of twist ties, lay the black piece in, then twist the ties back to secure it. Then the next piece of frayed edge mesh we will ruffle and place on top of that black piece that we just put in there. This is a type of burlap, and it does have fibers that go through the air. So if you have respiratory issues, or just, to err on the side of precaution, you might want to put on a mask while you're working with this type of material. Now we're placing our last pieces of filler mesh. These 3 layers just to create our base has really made a full, very large, round, beautiful base. I really love the textural differences in the 3 choices of mesh that we used for the base. All of them contrast each other nicely. Okay, I think this is actually the last piece of filler mesh. But isn't it fun to work with? These frayed edges just really are a fun, whimsical touch. Let's get a good look at the base all the way around. It looks even and symmetrical and very full. If your base came out a little too poofy, just press down gently on the top layer and it will compress the 2 together and fluff the top layer out, and it will look just fine. Now it's time to cut the tails for the wreath. Instead of cutting them individually, one at a time, I'm going to wrap them around the spool holder from my Pro Bow bow maker. Outer peg to outer peg is 14 inches, and my tails, I need them 14 inches. So I can quickly wrap this around and make my tails rather than cut them one at a time. So lift it off of the spool holder and then just cut both ends to form your tails. Now, if you don't have a spool holder, you can totally measure 14 inches, cut, measure another 14 and cut. This is just a time saver for me. If you have one of these, totally use it. If you don't, it is not mandatory. Now we have to add the V detail or the dovetail in the ends of our ribbon. It's a way to finish the ribbon. So you line all your edges up, fold your ribbon in half, then you're going to cut from the folded edge down to the point, and it forms a nice V detail to finish off the ends of your ribbon. We will put this V detail in every ribbon that we cut for our tails. Now that we have all of our ribbon cut for our tails, you're going to take one 2.5 inch and one 1.5 inch. Place the smaller ribbon on top. Fold them in half to find your center. Then you're going to gather or pinch on that center crease that you just made. Kind of straighten out your ribbon a little bit. Then you're going to lay it into a twist tie. Doesn't matter where you start, just choose a tie and start laying your ribbon in. Once you've twisted the ties to secure the ribbon to your frame, then fluff it, spread them out. I always pull the 1.5 inch to the left and the 2.5 inch to the right. That way my ribbons are uniform all the way around. As you see here, I've started to put a few in already, and that color combination and the patterns match fabulously. Again, you lay the 1.5 inch on top of your 2.5 inch, fold it in half to find your center, and gather on that center. Then lay into the next tie that set of ribbon. And as you can see, we've alternated ribbon selections in every other tie. So one tie we've used the black pumpkin with the polka dots. The next tie we use the scroll with the solid orange. The tie after that is back to the pumpkins and polka dots, and so on and so forth. And you will rotate that pattern through the whole wreath. Always take the time to fluff and place your tails as you go. You can do minor adjustments at the end, but as you build your base, for the most part, you want your materials to be in their resting place, so you don't have too much to move around and shift as you go. Now, when you make bows, that's a different story because they're going to get, smushed as you work. But for your tails, you want to make sure, for the most part, they are placed where you want them. And these can make or break your wreath, so please take your time in shaping them and forming them. Run your fingers down the edges of the wire to help give it a little bit of curve, a little bit of life. You don't want them sticking straight out like they're lifeless. You want to give them some movement. And here we go. Isn't that just gorgeous? Now we get to add our sign. I use mounting brackets. You can get these on Amazon, Lowe's, Home Depot, usually in the electrical department. I reinforce them with some E6000 just for security so they won't pop off in the heat or extreme cold. I am putting a pipe cleaner through each mounting bracket on the sign, and that's how we're going to attach it to the wreath frame. I only use 2 for this sign because we're going up and down. 2 is plenty to secure it to the frame, so it's not going to be loose or wobble around. And I don't use more materials of this type unless it's absolutely necessary. Now is when you want to look over the top of your base, make sure all of your stems are pointing outward, not in. Make sure your ribbons are in a proper place, and then decide where the best place for your sign is. Lay it down, look at it for a moment, study it, make sure it's what you want, where you want, and if you like the placement, then run the pipe cleaners down to the frame and secure them, tie them off. Wrap your pipe cleaner around the frame, and you'll do that for the top and the bottom. Once you have your frame secured, make sure that you haven't pulled too tight and made your sign sink down into the wreath. It needs to sit on top. Our next layer is going to be some Deco tubing. Actually, it's jute tubing in off-white or cream colored. I cut it at 36 inches, made 3 little loops, and I'm going to put one of those pieces in every tie that has the solid orange and the scroll, except for one tie, and I will show you which tie in just a moment. Again, these are 36-inch pieces of the jute tubing, and I'm placing them in the ties with the solid orange and the scroll ribbon. Now there's one tie I don't put it in, and that's going to be to the upper left corner of the sign, and that's because that's where I'm going to put our main focal bow. We have cut enough pieces for every tie but the one with the solid orange. They're 36-inch pieces. I made 3 loops, which leaves us with 3 loops and 2 tails, and I placed that in those ties. I really love 4-inch ribbon. It's a huge statement on a wreath. So for this focal bow, we're going to start with this 4-inch ribbon. We measured a 14-inch tail. Now we're measuring a 14-inch loop, bringing it to the back and gathering it or pinching. Then we're going to twist that tail to the top so the pretty side is up. Then we will measure out another 14-inch loop, bring that to the back and pinch it in or gather it in with the rest. Then twist that tail to the top so the pretty side is showing up. Then you're going to cut it at 14 inches as well. So we have 2 14-inch tails and 2 14-inch loops. You will need a pipe cleaner. You're going to run through the center of the bow and twist off in the back to secure it. Don't forget to dovetail the ends. This is a finishing touch that we do to most all of our ribbons. Cut from the folded edge down to the point to form the V. The second ribbon we're going to add to the focal bow is this 1.5 inch orange with a frayed edge. We measured a 14-inch tail, a 13-inch loop, twist the pretty side to the top, another 13-inch loop and bring it to the back, twist and cut another, oh no, we're going to make this a 4 loop, I think. There's our third loop, 13 inches. Twist it to the top. And I thought I might just only use the 3 loops, but when I put it next to the 4-inch ribbon, it definitely needed the 4th loop. So here we go to make our 4th 13-inch loop. Gather it in the back, twist the pretty side of the ribbon up, and you're going to cut another 14-inch tail. This is not the typical way to assemble a bow, but it is the way that I chose to do it for this one. So take a second pipe cleaner, run it through the middle of this bow, and twist to secure. Fluff your bow a little, make sure your tails are turned properly. Then you're going to take this bow and place it on top of the 4-inch bow. Run the pipe cleaners through the center and kind of twist the 2 sets together on the back, just so you don't get confused and it looks like you have one set of pipe cleaner coming out the back. So you've layered in your second ribbon for our focal bow. Now we're going to do the last ribbon for our focal bow, a 14-inch tail, 13-inch loop, no, I'm sorry, 12-inch loop. Twist that pretty side to the top, measure out another 12-inch loop, bring it to the back and gather, twist the pretty side to the top, and then cut a 14-inch tail. And as with the other 2 pieces of this bow, you're going to grab another pipe cleaner, run it around the center, and twist it to secure. You're going to add this 3rd piece to the top of our focal bow. Run the pipe cleaners to the back, twist to secure, kind of wrap all sets together so you have one piece coming out the back. Then you're going to fluff your bow a little bit, form your tails, your loops. Make sure everything is placed and laying just like you like it. Don't forget to add the dovetail or the V detail to the ends of the ribbon that you added to this focal bow. Now it's time to add the bow to the wreath. That tie that we didn't put the jute tubing in at the top left corner of the sign, That's the area that we're going to place this bow. Run the pipe cleaners down to the frame and secure your bow to the frame. Try not to pull it too tight because you don't want it to sink down into the wreath. You want your bow nicely sitting on top, just like the sign. Now you will want to maneuver and place every tail and all the loops how they look best on the base next to your sign. Run your fingers along the edges of the wire of the ribbon. That gives it some shape and some body. Scissor your fingers around the smaller ribbon. It's kind of the effect you get with the curling ribbon at Christmas for Christmas presents, that you use a pair of scissors. Do the same thing essentially with your fingers on the ribbon to curl. Give it the curl, give it the body. Do that for each one and make sure that they're laying nicely. You may have to play with it for a minute. Position your bow. Make sure that none of your loops or tails are covering your sign. You may have to tug on it just a little bit. And that's okay. Adjust as needed before moving to the next step. Now we're going to add some accent bows. And I know from this angle it's going to be hard for you to see, so I'm going to talk you through it. We gather just a little tail for start, and then we measure out a 12-inch loop. Twist the pretty side up, measure out another 12-inch loop, bring it to the back, gather and twist. Now you're going to lay this, before you ever cut it off the spool, lay this into a tie. And I'm putting these particular accent bows in the ties that have the pumpkin with the polka dot. Once you have twisted the ties to secure the bow in, run your fingers down the length of the ribbon coming out the bottom that's still attached to the spool. Give yourself a little slack and then come underneath to the outer ring and tie in, leaving a little slack there, tie in to that twist tie on the outer ring that has the solid orange and the tubing. Now we still haven't cut this from the spool, but we're getting ready to. Once you get it secured into this bottom tie, you'll take and cut a tail roughly the same length as the others. Go ahead and put your dovetail into it, and that forms the first leg, as I call it, of this accent bow. And there you can see there's one leg of the bow going out to the left. Now we're going to add the right leg. We're going to just make a little tail on the end to get us started, something, for the twist tie to grasp onto. We're going to put it in that twist tie that the loops are in. Kind of lift one side of the loop, put it underneath so you don't see it resting on the top. It's kind of hidden. Then twist your twist tie back down really tight. Then you're going to repeat the same process as we did with the other leg. Run your fingers down the length of ribbon, giving a little slack. Then put a gather in it where you're going to tie into the outer ring tie. And remember, it's going into the tie that has the solid orange and the Deco tubing in it. Remember to cut from the spool a tail roughly the same length as the others, and put your dovetail into it, your V detail, to polish it off. If you see any of the tails that you created to get started with on top of your bow, take your scissors and snip off the little piece you can see, and it'll disappear. Nobody will ever know it was there. This is the first of 2 accent bows. You can see the left leg tied into the bottom, the right leg tied into the bottom. Now we're going to do the same thing one more time. Locate the next tie. So you'll skip one, which is the orange, solid orange. Then you'll go to the next tie that has the pumpkin, and that's where we're going to make our second one of these accent bows. Again, we're making them 12-inch loops. Secure those 12-inch loops into that tie, just like we did the other. We're cutting off the little tail that we got started with because we can see it. If your loops look a little lopsided, like one is bigger than the other, now would be the time to even them out. Usually a little pull from one side or the other will do the trick. Run your fingers down the length of the ribbon, giving a little slack. Figure out where it's going to meet the tie below it and gather, and then lay that gather into that twist tie and secure it. Then you're going to cut a tail roughly the same length as the others. Put your dovetail, V detail, into it, and that will be the first leg of our second accent bow. To make the last leg of the second bow, you're going to give yourself a little tail. Tie into the tie. Figure out where it will meet the next tie. And lay it in and tie off. And you may have to snip off the end of that tail if you can see it. Now we have both accent bows completed. How cute is this? To finish up this piece, we're going to add a little whimsy. We're going to cut down a pick that I got at Hobby Lobby. It has some crows on it and these sequined black, kind of twiggy looking pieces. So we're cutting the crows off and putting them to the side. We'll repurpose them for another project. But we're going to use these 3 whimsical pieces in a triangular pattern. So at this point, it doesn't matter where you start. You can, eyeball and figure out what looks right for a starting point. But from there, you need to make sure you're putting it in a triangular pattern. That is what's pleasing to the eye, and it gives a pattern for your eye to follow. So just part the mesh. Now, in this, I didn't use glue. So when you're actually assembling this wreath, put a little bit of glue on the ends of these wispy branches before you put them in between the layers of mesh so they'll adhere. Now we're going to put the 3rd piece in, and as you can see, it's in a triangular pattern. And this just adds dimension to your wreath. And here you go. Here is the final project. A Halloween Deco mesh wreath with lots of layers. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to learn how to make your own beautiful home decor pieces, go to halocreativedesigns.com and click the tab that says Private Coaching across the top. For $14.99 a month, I give you many tutorials, various designs showing you how to make your own beautiful home decor.